Well, all right, let's get going. How you doing, Gabriel? Good. Well, good. So, hey, thanks for being here. I'm excited to be with you today. So, what wins or successes? What good things have happened since we met last?
Door knocking, run into two people.
You ran into two people, and yeah.
One of them,
I was gonna say, does that just mean like two people opened the door, or?
two people opened the door that are looking to sell. So, well, one of them was like remodeling her kitchen.
Okay.
But she said that she has an agent. So, I don't know how I go about that, but.
Well, so great point on that. Typically, if somebody says they have an agent, the follow-up question I immediately ask, and I don't do it in like a I don't believe you kind of way. I do it more of just like out of a curiosity.
Well, she said that because I asked her,
Who is it?
what do you mean by that? And she's like, well, it's just the person that I bought the house from.
Yeah, and then I just go, oh, really? Who was it? Like more like I wonder if I know him.
Yeah.
Because what will happen if they don't really have somebody? Yeah, they're gonna go. I mean, they'll hesitate. They aren't gonna.
Even if they do, they don't even remember. Like,
Yeah,
what
well, and that's what I'm looking for is is if they're hesitating on it, there's probably not that great of a relationship. Even if they do, if they're like, it was Bill something, Parker, something like that, I don't know. Then I would be like, there's not that solid of a relationship. If they threw it, oh, it's my brother-in-law or whatever, then you might want to just say, all right, next,
So do I just call her back and check back with her and be like, hey, how's it going? How's the
Yeah,
kitchen going?
absolutely. I would say that, yes, for sure. I would think it's worth following up because if you just stay in touch and you provide some information, depending on how solid the relationship with the agent is, she may say, hey, I really like Gabriel. He's helping me out a lot versus the other person. So,
It's probably a good time to mention second opinion.
yeah, absolutely. That's the other thing you could just say is, hey, what would you think about getting a second opinion from
Oh, okay,
Yes.
yeah.
get somebody else's ideas in terms of that. So, good. Congratulations. Good job. Good. Who else? What other wins or successes? What good things? Timber?
Well, we went door knocking together.
Okay.
Which
Sorry,
was
I
fun.
didn't mention
Yeah, could you mention me next time?
Yeah,
we said it?
that's right.
I also drove, so, no, but,
So that was a win.
That was a win. No, I, even if this doesn't come through, I felt really good about like just building my skills at the door, like remembering to ask questions and when you get objections. So like this guy it was like, we're not thinking about it right now. But you can kind of hear it in their voice, like, wait a minute, if you tell me something good, I might consider it, So then like giving information about the market. And then, my wife's best friend is an agent. She has several friends that are agents and her best friend is an agent. I'm like, well, do you think it would destroy the relationship if something went wrong in the real
that's a great
estate?
question. Yeah.
Because wouldn't you rather put that on somebody you don't know? And he was like, well, yeah, it would destroy things, And so he was willing to talk with her last night. What? Oh, yeah.
She said that's going to come back.
Yeah, so I even said like there may even be something that we could work out, where I would do a referral fee so that you can preserve the
Perfect.
relationship and I can, and
Great.
I would work with you guys. So
Yep.
I meant to call him this afternoon and then see if we can set up an appointment. So. But like I said, I don't even care if it works out because the practice was
Yeah.
it was just like
Good.
yeah.
That's awesome. Good.
You know.
Congratulations. Good job. So, good. Who else? Down.
Got a FISBO
Awesome.
listing.
So, he listed it.
Yeah, well, next week I'm listing it.
Awesome. Give them a hand. Congratulations. Good job. Awesome.
It's good.
Yeah.
They were very insistent, like walking in, they said, we're happy to pay you to like help us price the house, but we are not interested in listing at all. That's how the conversation started, so it was good to,
Sounds like.
I felt good walking away,
Yeah. Awesome. Good job. Congratulations. That's awesome. Good. Who else? What other wins?
I was talking to this gentleman that had a house for sale over in Provo, up in by the hill. It's an older home, but beautiful. And he was telling me how his kids were trying to sell it for him. Him and his wife lives in St. George. And I just started chatting with him and everything. And then his kids he goes, let me talk to my kids. They're coming over this weekend. So I called him today. He goes, we agreed that we need to have a real estate agent dealing with it because it's a mess. My brother lives there and the kids aren't cleaning up and blah, blah, blah. And I said, he said, I'm looking at you and 4 other agents. Now, David just emailed and said, hey, I mentioned to him that we would love to, take a drive down to St. George, and he's excited about that. So David emailed him and said what time going down to St. George, and What other suggestions would you make when it's some?
I would just say make sure you take me with you to St.
It'd be so fun, yeah.
So what other suggestions when what?
Like when you're trying to sell a home for somebody that is not close, what suggestions, because we're selling it and he's down in St. George. I mentioned to him about Dot Loop, that would be very helpful. What other suggestions would you?
So, yeah, not a bad idea if you wanted to go down to St. George for something to do that, but you could do things over the phone, like you say, you can use
Yeah.
Dot Loop, you can do all those things, and really even, and I haven't done a whole lot of this, but you could do an appointment using FaceTime, off your iPad or something to chat with them to find out, more about what they're looking for. But ultimately, that's really what the secret is going to be. Is you just got to find out ask a lot of questions to find out what it is they're looking for. So.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so I thought that would show that we're keen by driving down there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't drive down there just for that personally, but
Yeah,
if you,
we're desperate, so.
When my grandma's down there, you can stop by and see her.
Say
She's selling
hi.
her house
There you
too.
go.
Eat us lunch, no?
She's selling her house too.
Right.
good. Well, good. What other wins
I
or
can't
successes? What good things? Okay, Ashley.
So my friend might sell her house, but her son was actually born in their house. So they have like a sentimental attachment to it. So how
Tell
do
them
you
they can take
get
the bathtub.
past that?
How do you what?
How do you get past that? Like, how do you try to convince them?
Well, so why are they wanting to sell?
Because they're thinking of actually moving out of state eventually, but I just told them like everything is going super fast, and when they bought their house, they bought it for like 110, and it's probably like 190 now.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, that would get us out of debt, So
Yeah.
they're
So those are
seeing
the
all
things you want to key on:
positive
is the
things.
getting out of debt,
Yeah.
the market's hot right
It's
now. all
just
those
their
things.
house payment's only like $700 right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the downside of it,
Sure.
But they're thinking about it, and they'll use me when they do sell.
Good.
So
Awesome.
someday.
Yeah, so the main thing is just stay in touch with them, but
Yeah.
it's in terms of ultimately you got to find out what the motivation would be of
Right.
what's the advantage to them selling, and then you want to deal with with that piece of it and
Yeah.
really keep going back to that, the motivation behind what
Okay.
would be the advantage to them of doing that. So
Have to take a lot of pictures,
I know.
that way you don't.
Like just have another kid somewhere else.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just do like a photo collage.
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah, that's a good idea.
good,
Yeah.
congratulations. Good. What other wins or successes? No.
Sorry to have another one.
That's okay. You can have another one.
No, we've been looking with some clients forever and just can't find something. Finally found something. It was the first day on the market, and of course, multiple offers and all sorts of stuff. So we got in that situation, and we had the first offer in, and I said, when is the soonest they can get back to us? They said, well, his work schedule, and they wanted an extra day, which I knew was going to bring in more offers, which it did. So that's when we were in that situation, and she said, sorry, we're gonna do a highest and best, and this whole thing, it'll be another couple days. And I said, I'm sure you're wanting to avoid all that. Like, I just called her on the phone at that point. I said, I'm sure you're wanting to avoid all that. You tell us what we need to do to get it, and let's make it happen. And so we actually, she disclosed that we didn't have the highest offer, but they still went with our offer because I sent them, I sent them, and this is maybe really stupid, but it worked. So I sent them a picture of the family, and I told
That's
them
good.
that like this is not
An
a
adoption.
investor,
Reminder.
and she said they look like a great family. And I said they're going to be an excellent buyer. This is going to be a super smooth process. And I know this isn't the highest offer, but it's got enough for your clients, right? And she said, well, yeah. So we ended up getting a word under contract.
Awesome. Good
I
job.
love
You
it.
handled
Playing
that.
with the
Good job.
emotion.
Yeah, which that is a very, very good idea of doing
Yeah.
those types of things. Because stop and think about it. In the situation of somebody selling their home and you're getting now highest and best, not always. I mean, a lot of times it's just, hey, as long as we can get X amount of dollars, then that's fine.
Because I told her we would leave if they did highest and best. So we're not gonna play that game.
Yeah.
And we were the first offer, and we had already developed this rapport with the other agent, and so
Yeah.
I think letting her know highest and best is gonna lose this offer.
And I think I told you this before already, but everyone else, when I first started in the business, it was not uncommon for us to show up and always present our offers, to sit down with the clients and to say to them, let me tell you about my client. and how much they love the home and how they're gonna take care of it. Because similar to what Ashley brought up, people do have this emotional connection to these properties, and even mine. So my wife and I have been in the home we're in now for just over 15 years, I think, or something like that. And I remember when we were leaving, my wife was more concerned about who was buying the house than what they were paying us for the home. So, I mean, because she was like, I want to make sure that it's a good family because we like all of our neighbors and all of that stuff, you know. And I'm like, all I care about is how much money they're giving us. But because we're not going to be here, I don't care what they do with our yard. But most people though do have that emotional attachment to the property and those two type of things. So if you can have the person like cheering for your buyer to, oh, we want them to get the house, you know, it could be that exactly what he said, you know. So again, this is one of those ways of how we separate ourselves. I mean, what a great way to now be able to talk to people in terms of if he had a buyer saying, well, why should I use you versus using, you know, somebody XYZ person. Well, let me tell you about some situations of things that I've done. And, you know, you talk about, hey, I've helped a buyer get a property that we weren't the highest bidder, but because of my negotiating skills, which is a great skill, right, to help them. So that's another thing that you can use with even sellers, even though it was a buyer. So good job.
Yeah,
Good.
with your house too. With your house, your friends, yeah, that would be good.
So good. What other wins or successes?
Well, this is not a win.
Question.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's-
we'll move to the question section now.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering because there's so little inventory. Something I'm struggling with is that like people want to sell, but then they're like afraid. They're afraid to sell their homes. Like they're excited because they can make money, but they're afraid to sell because they don't want to be homeless or have to move in with their in-laws. And like literally, that's the problem with two families. And so I think people are. I mean, it's like getting worse. Like the lack of inventory is becoming more difficult because if they, I mean, like this situation, you know, I mean, even the house that I have listed right now, she lost out on 6 highest and bests for over 3 months, you know, and so it's like, what if we love a house and we put an offer and then we're in the highest and best and we've already put our house on and there's an offer on that and then like we don't win.
Okay,
You
good.
know,
So what can you do? How can you deal with that with somebody to ease their fear, their concern? Because that is actually a
We
legitimate
had that
concern, right?
experience
All right. So we'll work our way back. So go ahead.
Take it. So you guys have all heard of George talking about new construction a lot lately, right? So a lot of those sites will already have homes built, quick move-ins, or they'll be like 30, 60 days out. So if you go to those, there's always builders doing that kind of stuff.
These people don't want a new build at all.
Okay.
They want an older home.
But
and
that is one
so-
solution. But so
Yeah.
what?
I mean, I
okay.
appreciate
We're
that.
working our way back to you. So
Yeah, I guess another thing you could do is just put the sale of their home contingent upon the purchase of another home.
is that what you were going to say, Dylan? Yeah.
I was gonna say that combined with a rent back scenario, there's so many different things you can do to give them, you know, you can give them 6 months' time, totally fine. The contingent part takes all the risk off of them.
Yeah.
So if they can't find it by a specific date, then
I would
it
agree.
is what it is.
So do you understand what?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my mind is just working in the other way. It's like most of the time you're writing like contingent upon the sale of our house, and now
Yeah,
you have
no.
to go.
No.
like,
In this scenario,
contingent
you would
upon
just
the
write
ability
it.
to
Yeah, you
buy
would
a
counter,
house.
and I would even just put it in the remarks on there that this
Okay.
the sale of their home needs to be contingent upon them finding someplace else to go.
And in a different market, a lot of people will frown on it, like a buyer will be like, well, I'm not gonna do it, but in this market,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
hey, if I love the house, I'm willing to bend over backwards to let this seller do what they need to do. This is a perfect
Yeah,
time
because
to
there's
do
just nothing. I mean, when they fall in love with it,
So
they're just.
James.
I was gonna say, is there anything you can do with like talking about like dates, like closing dates and things like that you could try to line up and say, okay, well, you know, this would help me the best, or you can always come to a situation with your, I mean, they're gonna be buyers and you're another situation and say, hey, my buyers are looking for, you know, certain dates that that work best for them. So we can come with this offer, but the contingencies are dates and times for
Absolutely.
my clients.
Absolutely. I mean, so the thing though that really for the seller the very best is for them to be willing to say, look, because the challenge is if they wait to find the property and then you go write an offer and it's contingent upon the sale of their house, what's the seller thinking? Yeah, the seller's gonna be like, if we got multiple offers, we don't wanna deal with one that you got, even though with how great the market is, you know, even with that, I mean, here's the other thing to keep in mind for you guys. As great as it is and as low as inventory is, how many homes didn't sell, like meaning expired in the last month?
240.
How much?
240.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's somewhere in that, the last number I saw was about 300 in Salt Lake County in a month, so.
10%.
Well, yeah, 10%, but stop and think about that for a minute. So, a lot of times sellers in today's market think, why not go for sale by owner? Because look how good the market is, everything's selling. Well, no, that's not necessarily true, because there are plenty of homes that still are not selling. So even though the market's great, there still are houses not selling. So if I'm representing the seller and I get an offer that's contingent upon the sale of a home, I'm gonna be less likely to take that one. Even though the market's great, there still is the chance it doesn't sell because it's overpriced or whatever, so anyway. Okay, good, what other questions? Curtis?
So I put my flip on the market finally.
Okay.
I took pictures yesterday. Should go on today.
Okay.
But here's the problem. My ex-wife owns half of it, and she wants me to list it too high, like you were just saying.
Okay.
So normally, like, I can use my expertise and tell a client, look, I think we need to list it here. But I know I'm gonna battle this with her, so any tips there?
Pricing strategy.
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
the best
pricing,
way of
yeah.
approaching it, is talking to her about just the pricing strategy. If we can throw it on there and we can try it at that price, but if we aren't getting any showings or.
And that's where we've settled, but I don't wanna sit for 3 weeks before I
before you do anything.
Where I want it to live.
Yeah, which I do agree with that from the standpoint, is what is the downside to just throwing it on there and doing that? What's the downside of 3 weeks from now?
Take it down.
Yeah, all of a sudden people can,
It's cost me about $50 a day, it sits there.
yeah, it could be just also that just the longer it sits there, the more people are willing to start offering less, so.
I was just gonna say, even in this market, it happens super quick, where after 3 weeks, people are like, oh, we can lowball these people.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's, and I know it's a crazy relationship with, it's a different element, but I would, give the proof just like any other client and like talk about exactly the risk associated with pricing it too high.
The other thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm done.
I just thought of something I do with clients that want to list too high, as I offer to give an appraisal form.
Yeah, here's my only concern with that is I've seen I feel like we are better than appraisers at pricing property. So I sort of depends, I guess what I'm saying. Here's why, the only reason I'm hesitating on that is I had one that it was a property in Taylorsville. It was a guy who lived in my neighborhood, it was his mom's home, she had passed away, so now they just needed to sell her place. So he had called me, he said, will you come out and take a look at it? We've had an appraisal done so that we know what it was worth. So I go out, I look at the property, and when I get out there and look at it, it's a single level home that backs up to a mobile home park. Okay, so like right outside their backyard was the mobile home park. So which is gonna be, that in itself is gonna bring the price down. But as I did my comps and stuff, I came up with, it's probably gonna sell like at 180, 185, something like that. And he says, well, we got an appraisal, and the appraiser told us it was worth 214. And I was like, oh. So the challenge is, I said, well, can I look at the appraisal? He said, yes, he let me look at it. Now, there's not a whole lot of like no basement houses out there. And so as I look at it, because it was a newer home, so newer with no basement. So as I get looking at it though, the appraisers used a so this is in Taylorsville, kind of just off Atherton Drive, and uses a comp in Sandy. I'm like,
that's
wow.
totally different.
Well, yeah. But so that's my only why I hesitate, is just it can work out good to get an appraisal done, but I've actually had it more times than not work out and hurt me. And the hard part is the general public puts like the appraisers like they just know everything,
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think we do a better job at it. We've got a better pulse on the market than what they do. They're usually about 6 months behind. So for me, that's my only hesitation. So I would be glad if you wanted to, Curtis. I'll sit down with you and her and take her through it. I mean, I don't know if she would still feel like I'm just taking her side, but I would be glad to sit down and just say, look, let's take a look at what's sold and things. So if you want to schedule a time and have her come in, I'll do that with you. So, okay.
Thank you.
Good. What other questions? Alright, so, Paul, anything you wanna share in
Yeah.
terms of, I almost called you Phil.
Yeah, no, Paul's fine. Some of you I'm acquainted with, I'm Paul Jolly, I work with Citywide Home Loans just across the foyer here, and love to be able to partner with you. We've got some great individuals in there, very competent, and we'd love to get to know you. And some of you we're kind of working with, and we appreciate everything you're doing out there. And one of the things that has come up is reverse mortgages. You're knocking on doors and getting to know people. Some individuals are in a reverse mortgage, they don't know how to handle it. And usually the regulators come in and are regulating that specifically. And if it's a reverse mortgage that's been around for a little while, usually it's a pretty clean deal. All it's a matter of you're doing is just retiring the value of that reverse mortgage, either through a refi or the sale of a home. And it's surprising how many reverse mortgages are actually out there, but some people just don't know enough about them to know what to do with them. And there's no mystery in it. It's just another way of extracting money out of your home. But in order to rid yourself of it, you have to sell the house, retire the amounts owing, and so forth. And that amount, it should be on a monthly statement that they get every month from those entity that's carrying that for them. So.
Well, I have a question I'm still working with that family.
Yes.
And the VA loan, apparently they went to a bank and they said they had to bring up their credit to be able to get a loan. Is that the same with the VA loan?
Yeah, there's VA loan. There's a lot of latitude in that regard. I mean, there's some great programs out there, and but for the most part, all you have to do to qualify for that is just be a veteran. And,
so they don't have to bring up their credit score.
Yeah, there's I guess it depends on the entity. I mean, are you familiar? I can answer that question definitively, so it's applicable to everybody.
Yeah.
And if I'll find out that answer.
Okay, great, thank you.
I will do that. Okay.
Still working on it.
Yeah, very good, very good. Very good. Well, thank you, Russ, and
Sure.
Thanks for being here. Talk more.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, any other questions before we? Well, actually, we need to do the accountability. So I just passed out to you the accountability sheet. So, so again, for those that this is maybe their first time here, the idea of this sheet is I want you to set some accountability, and we're going to talk about that as we get into the company foundation today. But I want you to make some commitments. What will you do in the next week? And actually, initially next Tuesday was the summit. And so I didn't plan class, but now summit is on Monday instead of Tuesday, so we still don't have class. So what I want you to be putting down is what you'll commit to do between today and next Thursday, since we won't meet next Tuesday. So from today till next Thursday, in terms of appointments, contacts, hours prospecting, whatever it is that you need to be doing, whatever it is you need to be doing to get your business kind of the next step along the way. So get into groups of either 2 or 3, no more than 3. And set some accountability in terms of, okay, what are you going to commit to doing? And then if you don't do it on the bottom, what are you saying you'll do if you don't? And like I say, we've had people eat a can of cat food or, whatever. Come up here and do a dance in front of the class. I don't know, whatever it is that's going to get you to do it. What I don't want you to do is say, if I don't do it, I'll eat a cookie or something. I'll gladly do that.
Make it punishable.
So anyway, so set a few things that you'll do. I think you ought to have at least 2, maybe 3 things that in terms of either contacts or appointments. Could be I'll role play every day. Could be I'll prospect, I'll door knock however many doors, something like that. Something that's going to get you to the next level, whatever it is that's holding you back. Make sense? So do that, and then get with somebody else. You're going to sign it, give it to them. They'll hold on to it, and then hold you accountable for it. So. Curtis has made some good money off of this, right? Or did you pay some good money?
No, I paid.
He paid some money to David, that's right.
Twice.
Yeah, that's right.
I think last week's contract should go till Thursday of this week, and then this one should go Thursday to Thursday.
Why?
Well, I
Because you didn't do
it.
What do you have to do?
Oh, I just have to take Zach to lunch.
Alright, there you go, Zach.
It looks like a good lunch. Right.
He's going to Ruth's Chris, right?
That's right.
Also, what's his Justin? Is that his name? Andrew. I couldn't remember.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so just take a few minutes to get that set in place with who's your partner. You gotta get an accountability partner.
Can I sign it? Or do you have to wait out?
Don't be Andrea.
Well.
It's.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't want to have one up there the
I got most of the way through. You get burgers and fries.
Actually, barely did, but I got it.
Oh, I should have. There's many classes.
Yeah, no, I barely got it. I'm honest, we went through a couple days. There were 2 days.
There's Ken.
I mean, I was busy doing real estate all day.
So,
Fact. Joe actually.
Yeah.
It's his fault. Oh, he did say You guys done?
Yeah.
You've been awfully quiet there. You know, yesterday that was me. Yesterday's very good. You what? 40? Nice. Oh, see, that's a win. You should have said that. That was good. It was interesting.
Yes, yeah. Yes,
Funny when you knock on those buildings, rare, you're not rare, sometimes it's good, I got one my daughter's a realtor
Oh, it's right on.
Well,
But that.
All right, 30 seconds. Finish it up if you're not done.
That lady that I thought she said she got her breaks already. I don't know if she's ever, she wants to see me for her agent.
Could be. Well, some people will do go and get appraisals done. Like I have a nephew that actually texted me a few months ago and said, "Hey, we're thinking about maybe selling our place. Should we get an appraisal done?" I'm like, no. Because the hard part is an appraiser goes out and it's very subjective and there's, versus we go out and look at it and go, okay, wait a minute, let's think about this like what a buyer would want, you know?
Yeah, I think as agents, we look at more possibilities and opportunities. Always, property has appraisals literally there to say shed, exactly, yard, granite, no granite, you know. And with us, it's like, you know, actually, you probably we figure it out, redo this room, knock it down, get an architect in here, you can probably increase it by this much money.
And like you said, you just always know like a buyer's gonna come in and go, they're gonna hate that. And the appraiser doesn't go, okay, because of that mobile home, I mean, that was the thing I didn't finish on that story, is that this mobile home part of that, I'd have tons of people come look at it when we listed at even 200,000, and they'd go, great property, but there's mobile home park. And the appraiser didn't take any of that into account, didn't say, I mean, sometimes they would, but he didn't. He didn't look at it and go, okay, yeah, this house is great, it looks good, it's great. But there's a lot of people that aren't gonna wanna live there because of the mobile homes. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is.
And an appraiser honestly is only gonna go, especially in today's market, he's only probably gonna go maybe 4 or 5 blocks an hour max. You know what I mean? He's not really.
Yeah, buyers don't buy that.
Yeah, you know, so yeah, buyers.
Alright, we guys good? We still working on it? I probably should save this like for the end of class. I should save this for the end of class and be like, hey, you guys sit and talk about all you want.
Just keep going.
Yeah, just have whatever.
You should move accountability class to this.
I know, right? Okay, the problem is I'm usually still like got half an hour worth of stuff to go and 10 minutes left to do it, so. Alright, we ready to get going here?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what we're going to be talking about today is the company foundation. Kind of just like where did it come from? What brought us here, and why does it work? I mean, as you guys are all aware, this office in particular with Century 21 is the #1 office in the world. And as a company, we are the #5 company with Century 21. So there's something going on here that works, right? And so that's what I want to get into and talk a little bit about today, and get into it maybe a little bit deeper than maybe what you have potentially heard before in terms of the company foundation. So back in 2009, what happened is George was sitting down with John Syatt, Rob Oakey, and I think he said there were 2 other people, but I don't know that I've ever heard actually who the other 2 people were. But the 3 that for sure were there was Rob Oakey, John Syatt, and George were sitting around a table talking, and George said, what did you guys think about if we just started a real estate company? And John Syatt, if you haven't heard him say this, you'll hear him say that he looked at George and said, if it was anybody else saying that, I would say you were crazy, but I think you're probably onto something. Maybe we should do that. Now, in case you weren't aware, what was going on is the market in 2007, and I think it was about August-ish 2007, all of a sudden it was like our market peaked and it just started to just fall off of a cliff. So even though now where they're sitting around this conference room table talking is 2009, I mean, how many of you remember what was going on during that time? I mean, just the economy, home prices, let me tell you, from the standpoint of being an agent at that time, it was not a fun time of being an agent. I mean, there was a lot of fear rampant in the market. Now, I've heard people recently talking about, is the same thing happening now? Because the run up to that, our inventory today is less than it was then. Now, I started in 2006 keeping track of the active homes for sale. So since 2006, so for about, not quite, but coming up on 10 years now, I have kept track of on a weekly basis, and I don't always do it every week, but at least once or twice a month, if not every week in the month, I go in on a Friday and I just pull up how many homes are actively for sale in Salt Lake County. Now, in 2006, when we had prices just skyrocketing, meaning like even in the neighborhood that I live in, I moved in 2000. In 2006 and 5 and 6, they were still building homes in my neighborhood. And there were a ton of people in kind of the last phase, because that's about where we were at in the neighborhood. This last phase, it was not uncommon for people to go in and be buying the house or putting in a contract to have the home built, and then prices would run up over the 6 months that house was being built. They would close on it and turn around and list it and sell it for significantly more money. So now keep that in mind, that's what had been going on. And even at that, our inventory, the lowest I ever saw it get when I started keeping track of this in 2006, was there were 3,000 homes for sale in Salt Lake County. Now, I heard somebody saying it earlier, how many are for sale today in Salt Lake County, single family?
22.
Yeah, it was, yesterday I pulled it up and looked, and it was about 2293 or something like that. So, but it fluctuates. I mean, on Friday when I looked at it, it was 23 something. But I think there must have been, over the weekend, a bunch went under contract, obviously, and all that. So stop and think about that for a minute. That's what had gone on, and we get asked today, is the same thing happening again? Well, look at our inventory. So we're now at around 2,300 homes. So there's even 700 less than that. There are 2,700 and something under contract. I've never seen that before either. So somewhat you can kind of wonder to yourselves, is the same thing going on? Are we building this up? I would say, in my opinion, it's not. Now that doesn't mean that we're not going to have a slowdown. I mean, it just like spring follows winter, summer follows spring. I mean, in real estate, we've got these same type of cycles where we've got this expansion and things going on, and we're gonna, at some point, it will slow down and the inventory is gonna build up again and all those things along the way. I think the difference though is, you guys tell me what you think, but it's, even though we've got this low inventory, it's not like we're seeing people come in and offer 20,000 more than list price. I mean, are you seeing that or no? Yeah, I mean, it's not like our prices are going nuts. So I think that's a healthy thing. That's good in terms of like the longevity of this. Because at some point, if prices were skyrocketing, we would be in trouble. But so just with bearing that in mind. So now fast forward to 2009, where kind of the opposite thing was going on. Is prices, you'd go list a house and it was like, we got to get this thing sold fast because next month it's going to be worth 10, 20% less. I mean, or whatever. It was ugly. So that's the market that this company was created in, was this horrible downturn in the market. So as they did this though, as they decided to build the company, what they decided though is the idea behind building this company was not going to necessarily be about real estate. Now when I say that, I mean obviously we do a ton of real estate, right? But ultimately what they said is we want this to be about improving people and helping people to become better at who they are and what they are. And so with that said, that's what this company was then built upon. So I've drawn up here. Now, any ideas what this, you get to see how well I did in art school. But what is this?
Stool.
Wow, I'm obvious. Either I did better or you guys are a lot smarter. Last time I drew this, somebody said it's an elephant. And I was like, well, I guess I could see where you might think that, but yeah, so a stool. It's a three-legged stool. Now, what would happen on this stool if I were to pull one of the legs out? Okay? Yeah, it's not going to be very, I mean, picture if you will, just if I had a stool up here that had 3 legs on it and you pull one of them out, how well is it going to stand? Not very good, right? So in terms of, as we start to get into this, so think of what we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about the foundation of the company, but prior to that, what I want to hit on is think of it in terms of building a house, the footings of the company, okay? So what we're going to hit on to begin with is these 3 pillars that we're going to talk about here would be really the footings to the foundation of our company. So when you're building a house and you've got the foundation, underneath it, you've got the footings in place, right? So think of that as being that. So there's 3 pillars that you need to be concerned of. And the first one I would say here is, and this is no particular order, but is your health. I'm not writing that very well. But think of it in terms of the health, your health, your physical, your emotional, your mental health, all of those things. The other piece then is going to be, my hand's bad enough as it is, and then to try and do it this way doesn't work any better, is relationships. So you've got to have your relationships in order. Now when we're talking about relationships, just like in health, when we're talking about physical health, mental health, those type of things, in terms of relationships, you've got to make sure that your relationships are in order. And starting really with your creator or whatever it is that you believe in, if it's God or some other being or whatever, but is starting there with is how is your relationship there with the creator? Then in terms of yourself, how's your relationship with yourself? You know, when you talk to yourself, which we all do, that's not weird. It's when we start answering ourselves that maybe that we do. But yourself. Then what about if you are married, your spouse? And underneath that, then your family and your coworkers and just anybody else that you are relating to is how are the relationships? And then the last over here then is going to be the money or your business, whatever. So money, business, what's that?
Financial.
Yeah, financial pieces of it. So really, all of us, in terms of our life, we've got this three-legged stool that has these three areas that we need to be concerned with. Is our health where it needs to be? Are our relationships where they need to be? And then also in terms of the money. Now, a couple of examples of that, and you've probably heard me talk about it before, but think about Tiger Woods. I love the example of Tiger Woods. Where did he was, no question, the best golfer ever, right? Where did he get screwed up? First thing he did, he gets his relationship messed up. As soon as his relationship got screwed up, then what happened?
His health was going.
Yeah, he started having back problems. He's been up to Park City, had knee surgeries, all those things, which then all of a sudden affected how he was doing financially. In fact, even lately, been even curious if he's even going to make the cut to playing on the weekend, right? So these things are so connected to each other that if one of them is off balance or not working, it affects the other pieces. Another example of that that's more local, Larry Miller. What killed him?
Diabetes, right?
Yeah, his health, right? And what did he say, if you've read his book, how was he as a father growing up? When his kids were growing up? Not later in life, but any idea? Yeah, he wasn't there. He was so focused on building his empire that he says in his book, now later on in life he did fix that and he got involved and was taking care of them. But look at along the way, he was so focused on building an empire, which he did, but then how old was he when he died? It's like 63, I think, 62, 63. So not really that old, but notice how these things are all connected and related to each other. And so for you, those would be like the footings to the foundation of what we're going to talk about. So in terms of this company that they decided they were going to build, is they said, we want to focus on not just this, but also in terms of relationships. And really, ultimately, when I first started meeting with George, how he said it is, this company is all about principles and finding principles that are just truth, that are just truths that are out there, whatever it is. George spoke this morning in Morning Ascent. Were any of you here? Natalie was, yeah. What did he talk about this morning?
About.
This is the test.
Yeah, he talked about, what did he talk about?
Principles.
Now you know why we
principles.
go over stuff over and over and over.
He talked about core principles of ourselves and relationships with whatever.
Okay,
Core
good.
principles of
He
business.
talked about chasing principles and not chasing the money.
Yeah, see, if you'll chase the principles, then the money will show up on its own. That was kind of the idea of this three-legged stool that we want to be working on. So the number one thing that they ask of you as agents within this company is that you just be coachable. Be willing to be coachable and to be pliable. As I'm saying that, I'm reminded of, I love the story of the Wizard of Oz, and someday I'll share with you kind of how I feel like that relates to real estate. But who wrote the story, Wizard of Oz? Wow, really? Okay, I'll help you then. It's L. Frank. That didn't help either, huh? Okay, anyway, L. Frank Baum. He was the one who wrote The Wizard of Oz. Now, as I'm saying this and thinking about it, in the story of The Wizard of Oz, at one point, Wicked Witch of the West, right, was the one that was still alive. The East was the one who got smashed by her house, right? Okay, so Wicked Witch of the West is flying through the sky, so picture this, and I'm guessing, how many of you have seen The Wizard? Has anybody not seen it? Okay, everybody's seen it. Because I was going to say, if you haven't, go back and watch it, find it. But the Wicked Witch of the West is flying through the sky, and she writes with her broom, like an airplane would write in the sky, writes with her broom, "Surrender, Dorothy." Now, what do you think she meant by that? Surrender, Dorothy. Yeah, so essentially in the movie, when you're first looking at it, it's like they're saying, yeah, give Dorothy to us. But I like to think of what she was really saying was surrender, Dorothy, meaning quit resisting. Stop fighting what you know would work, and actually I don't know that she knew, but stop resisting what would work, which in the end of the movie, really all she needed to do was click her heels together and then say there's no place like home. So surrender, Dorothy. In terms of you being coachable, here's what I would say. As I have coached and taught new agents over the last 12 years, there are so many that are so resistant that want to resist doing the things that actually work and saying, well, yeah, but I don't really want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. So the number one thing that we would ask of you is be coachable. Stop fighting, surrender. Stop resisting the things that we know will work, even though it might make you a little uncomfortable to do some of those things. Be willing to say, you know what, I'm going to get and be in a position that's a little uncomfortable, which actually is a good segue here now into the next thing. So, the foundation of the company. I like to do that in terms of like this pyramid here. So we've got the footings to the foundation there. The first principle then of this foundation is purpose.
Is this like Maslow hierarchy of needs?
Well, sort of, not exactly. It's not exactly the same as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I think as far as putting it together in an order, yes, in terms of like we need to make sure we do this before that, which in Maslow's hierarchy of needs is saying, you got the physiological, you got to have that, then you're going to have your safety and then health and those things. So similar but not exactly the same. So the first step is the purpose, why, or your dreams. Now where this came from actually, let me give you kind of the history of where this company foundation came from. What happened was early on in George's career, he had gone out, he was competing with an agent that is now with Berkshire Hathaway, her name was Joan Pate. He had competed on a for sale by owner against Joan, and she got the listing and he didn't. He went back to the office and was frustrated thinking, what is it that these top agents know, or what is it that they do that I don't have in place? And so he really sat down and this has evolved, but what he figured out is the first thing that these top producers all have is they understand what their purpose is, or their why, or what their dreams are. And so for you, one of the first things you need to know if you really want to be successful in this business is why. I mean, of everything you could have chosen, why real estate? But then not only that, but deeper even into, okay, what is it that you want out of this business? And yeah, don't answer, but for yourself, what is it that you want? And it needs to be deeper than money. Because if all you're thinking about is what you want is the money from it, it's not going to drive you to doing what you need to do in this business. Instead, you need to get deeper into why. So let me help you with the exercise that I went through. I'll share with you my experience of doing this. As I was trying to figure this out, I had read somewhere that's, I got on the internet and was doing a search. Okay, how do you figure out what your why is? What do you do to do it? And the best example that I found was somebody said, just sit down with a piece of paper and ask yourself that question. What is my purpose? What was I put here on this earth for? What was the purpose behind it? What because every one of you is an exceptional person, but at the same time you're not an exception to the rules that are going to lead to success, okay? So figuring out for you, what is it, because every extraordinary person out there, the people that you think of, whoever it is that you think of as being these extraordinary people, really are just ordinary people that did some extraordinary things. We tend to put them as that, well, they've got all these other things that I don't have, which that's not really true. It's just figuring out your why. So what you want to do is sit down and just say, so what is my purpose? Meaning if I could do anything or accomplish anything, what is it? And then just write down whatever comes to your mind. Now, when I first read this on the internet, what they said is it might take you a half an hour to an hour, so set apart a half an hour to an hour that you can just do this. And then you just say, what is my purpose? What is it? And then just start writing. And you write whatever comes to mind. If what comes to mind is this is stupid, then write down this is stupid. If what comes to mind is I need to go do the dishes, write down I need to go do the dishes. Let's start with what do you want to do? What is it? And here's what, for me, I'll tell you kind of how the process went. Now, first thing is, they said it would take half an hour to an hour. Yeah, I was still going like 2 hours into it. So maybe I'm like remedial on it or something, but I was still trying to figure, because what should happen is as you start writing this down, eventually you're going to have some emotional attachment to it. Now, you may even start to cry when you start to write down what it is. I mean, it might be that type of an emotional thing. It might not be. It might be that you just have this like, okay, yeah, that's it. That's what it is for me. So as I did this, though, I started writing down, okay, I want to go travel the world. I mean, I was writing down, I want to own a home on a beach, just whatever it is. You start writing down whatever those things are. But here's what's interesting is after you get kind of that fluff stuff out of there, all of a sudden you'll start to write down some real things for you of what it is. And here's what I landed on for me was I just figured out, you know what? I've been asked for years, if you can really make so much money in real estate, why are you standing up here teaching us how to go do it? Why aren't you just out doing it? Well, and that's part of what I landed on is for me, honestly, what I get out of this business. When I came into doing the training piece 12 years ago, my wife convinced me. She was her that said, I think you ought to go do it. I said, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm only going to do it for a year because I just feel like I'm not going to make that much money doing it. That's compared to what we were doing selling. But I started doing it, and what I found was that, yeah, for me, where I get my joy out of this is when one of you who all of a sudden the light bulb turns on. And I don't want to say necessarily struggling, but sometimes the people who struggle the most and then all of a sudden the light bulb turns on and their business takes off, for me, that's the reward for why I'm doing what I do, is I want to be able to make a difference in people's lives. So typically, that's where you're going to probably end up landing on is something related to that in terms of you being able to help other people is what I'll tell you. But so for me, that's got to be your number one thing is you got to figure out what it is. Now, in terms of that, let's talk for a minute about logic versus emotion. So you will hear, if you haven't yet, in the company, you'll hear people talk about the 4 personality types, right? There's the analytical, expressive, driver, and amiable. Those are the... Now, one of the things, though, in terms of real estate and you, and just life, actually, let's not even talk real estate, just in terms of life, is we are emotional people. Meaning, a lot of the things, it doesn't matter what your personality type is, the decisions, the things we do are going to be emotional, not necessarily always logic. And why I say that is, logic does not dictate for you to go out and knock on a stranger's door, right? But you're going to have to do some of those things. But the reason you're so resistant to doing it is because the emotions behind it. It's the fear, it's the unknown, it's all of those things. Logic doesn't dictate it, it's the emotion that kind of keeps us. So picture in your mind for a minute, I'm going to talk to you about a guy by the name of Bob, okay? Bob is 5'6", he weighs 400 pounds. Now stop and think about for a minute. What do you know, just from what I've told you already about Bob, what do you know about him? Besides the fact that he's too short.
Big guy.
Right? Yeah, he's a big guy. He's too short, though. So with him, how's he going to move?
Very slowly.
Yeah, and in terms of like getting on a plane.
For children, hard.
Yeah, potentially have to pay for an extra seat. And what about going and doing all the things? Now, when he goes to the doctor, though, what does the doctor tell him? You need to lose weight, right? Do you think he knows he needs to lose weight? So why does he not lose weight? Well, so I want to tag off what Natalie said for a minute. She said he doesn't know how. Do you think that's... Do we know how to lose weight? How do we do it?
Eating
It's eating what?
the right food.
And, okay, good. So we got to eat right. And I mean, ultimately, that's what it is, right? Is it really boils down to exercise. And believe me, I'm as guilty of it as anybody. I mean, you don't even want... Yesterday was opening day for baseball. Was it anybody else celebrate besides me? Yeah, I was eating pizza, actually. I ate. But, I mean, yesterday, believe me, I ate my share, you know, and the whole time I'm doing it, I'm knowing, hey, tomorrow when I get up, my pants are not going to, you know, they're going to be a little tight. And so we all know what to do, but why don't we do it?
There's more emotion enjoying that hot dog.
That's right. It's the emotion that's involved with that, right? So unless we understand really our why, unless we have the emotional attachment to what it is we want to really accomplish and do, that the emotions then will control us the opposite direction, right? So we got to make sure we have those pieces in place, okay? Next. The next step, the next piece of this then is going to be, oops. Our goals, our plan, and our schedule, okay? So now that we understand our why, once we have landed on this understanding really what our why is. Why do we want to be a millionaire? I mean, everybody out there wants to have a ton of money. I mean, maybe not everybody, but most people think about it. So why do they not?
Hard sacrifice.
Yeah, the sacrifice, they don't know how. I mean, there is just a formula out there for success. It really is just a formula that we have to follow. Now, so one of the pieces of that is having, so once we understand our goal, our why, then we can start to put in our goals. Okay, so what I want to do is be able to affect people and coach them and train them and do those kinds of things and help people along the way, what needs to happen for that? So what are the goals that are going to get you to that point? Now, when I say what are the goals for that, meaning in terms of like, what are your 1-year goals? Do you have a 1-year goal? What is it that you want to accomplish that will help you get to whatever this why is? What is the 1-year goal? What's the 2-year goal? What is the 5-year goal? What about a 10-year goal? Now, I think it was Tony Robbins that said this. I'm pretty sure it was Tony Robbins. One of the things he said is most people will overestimate what they could accomplish within a year. So we tend to, as human beings, we will overestimate what we could do within the next year, but we way underestimate what we could do in 10 years. So as you think about in terms of goals, if you did just improve just a little bit every day, I mean, think of what the changes that would make in the next 10 years. Another example of that was listening actually this morning to, as I was getting ready, I was listening to Jim Rohn. He has an audio thing that you can get that's called The Art of Exceptional Living. Was listening to that this morning, and he was talking about we should, and especially with our kids, and this is where my thoughts went this morning, is with my kids. I need to teach them this now, because I wish somebody would have taught me this. But he talks about, imagine if you just lived off of 70% of whatever your income is. It really doesn't matter what your income is. We tend to think, well, if I only had more money, no. It's how we manage the money that we have. So he said you should teach kids and yourself to live off of 70% of your income. So if you did that, if you just said, I'm going to live off of 70% of my income, and then the other 30%, what he says, 10% ought to be donated to some type of a charity, used to help better people, okay? And he said a lot of times you can find some organization that you could donate that money to that would help, whether it's the Red Cross, who are the bell ringers on Salvation Army, thank you. So church, whatever organization you wanted to do that with. 10% ought to go to that. 10% ought to be used for you to take money and go out and buy something and then fix it up and then sell it. And he gave a story about a kid going out and buying a little red wagon, fixing it up and then turning around and selling and making a $10 profit. But so for you, could be go out and buy a house that you fix up, you turn around and sell it. Something like that. Some type of investment money basically is what it is. And then the other 10% he says should be just going into financial institutions, some type of a savings type of a thing. So, but stop and think about that. If you did that, and what he says is if you followed that process from a kid and you trained it to a kid growing up, what would happen to him? By what age? I mean, like picture a 15 or a 16-year-old kid, or maybe even younger than that, really, start with the first dollar they earn. At what point are they going to just have tons and tons of money? It's not going to take very long, right? No. The compounding of it. Go ahead.
That's interesting because, I live in Alpine, there's a lot of very wealthy people, and like one of my daughter's girlfriends, the parents have a maid go into their apartment at BYU.
Everybody doesn't do that?
I know, isn't that shocking? And I just say, and I tell the mom, I go, let them clean it themselves. But apparently her children don't clean, and that's very common. And now that we've been a bit struggling at the moment, my children are not getting everything they want. We had to fire the maid. And now they're thinking, like my 14-year-old goes, they're thinking about how can I make money for myself. And they're like bouncing ideas. Mom, I have an idea how I can make money. And I think that is so great. It's a blessing, I think, even though, we're not as what we used to be. But it's a blessing that we're in this financial situation because they're thinking. My autistic daughter yesterday went up to a reception center and ask for a job, you know, and I thought, wow, that is amazing that she did that, you know? And I think that there's something about having your children challenge them
Sure, absolutely.
in that way.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. Any other thoughts on any of that? All right, so in terms of goals, so setting the goals, what's the goal? Then the next piece, once you've set the goal in place, is then what's the plan to get there? So what is my plan? How am I going to get there? I mean, imagine that you're the CEO of a company, okay? And you've been called to go to this board meeting where you show up at the board meeting and the board of directors says to you, you're the CEO, the board of directors says, all right, Jeff, what's the plan for this next year? What's our business plan? And you say, we don't really have a plan. I mean, we're just going to kind of wing it and see what happens. How long are we going to let Jeff be the CEO if we were the board of directors and he shows up and tells us that? What? Is it Google? Yeah. But he's probably not going to last very long without a plan, right? Same thing, we've been talking about building houses. Imagine going out, you're the builder of it, you're going to go build a house and you have no blueprints, no plans of how you're going to. We're just going to kind of throw it up and, you know, we'll decide where we're going to put the walls as we build them, right? I mean, it's never going to happen, right? The same thing, I've watched so many real estate agents come in without a plan. What is your plan? What does it look like? How are you going to get there? So you need to make sure you've got a plan, and then also obviously the schedule that's daily going to get you. So in terms of your schedule, let's talk about that for a minute. What does your schedule in real estate need to look like?
Be here at 7:30.
Okay, good. Bill?
I mean, in terms of the activities you should be doing.
Uh-huh.
Like lead gen, lead follow-up.
Okay.
So,
Good. Yeah. So when does your schedule start, though? So Natalie said 7:30. So if I'm going to put together a schedule for myself, should I start at 7:30?
No.
Okay. When should I start?
9 o'clock, 5.
At 9 o'clock? Why?
As we get out of what's the first class of college?
Morning Sen?
Set.
Okay.
I think I started at 6 because you gotta be,
Okay.
what do you wanna do beforehand, before you get to the meeting?
Okay, good. See, Timber's heard it before, probably, right? So ultimately, it really needs to start the night before, right? We need to really be starting the night before. And let me give you an example of that. I have a 15-year-old son, and the thought that came to mind as we're talking about this was back at the national championship football game for college, when they had that, is back in January, right? My son was way excited for us, wanted to watch it. It got over really, I don't remember how late it was. It was like 10:30 or something at night, might even been 10:45, something. I let him stay up to watch it. Well, the next morning I got up, I'm on the treadmill, and in my basement, when I'm on the treadmill, I can see, with all the lights off basically, I can see when he turns his light on in the morning. So when I'm on the treadmill running, I can tell he's up because all of a sudden I see the light go on. If I don't see the light on, I know he's not up, and then at about 6 o'clock, I'll go in there and shake him to wake him up to get going, right? So I'm on the treadmill and I'm watching, and typically it's between 5:45 and 10 to 6 that he gets up. It's somewhere in there. Well, this particular day I'm on there watching, and it's 6:50, 6:55, or 5:50, sorry, not 6, 5:50, 5:55, and I'm getting madder and madder. You know, my heart rate's up, and not because I'm running on the treadmill, it's because I'm getting madder and madder. That I let you stay up, and then you didn't bother to get up on time. So I had to go in and wake him up. So we kept having this problem with him, and I finally just said, look, if you can't get up on time, we're not going to let you stay up later. So kind of the same for us in terms of really our schedule needs to start the night before of deciding, all right, what time do I need to get to bed so that I can get up? And in my opinion, I think you should get up and do some exercise, sit down and do some reading, do some of those things before you show up here at 7:30, or for you in Centerville at 8 o'clock, whatever, to me, that's really, you need to be starting earlier. Why should you get up and exercise then versus doing it tonight when you get home?
It's never gonna happen.
Right. Exactly, right? I mean, it's just not going to probably happen. Because why?
Because everything else gets in the way.
Yep, because life happens, right? And so let's tag to that. When would be the best time for you to prospect then, do you think?
Probably at night.
First thing in the morning.
Yeah, and why would it be best to do it in the mornings?
So it's never do it before.
Because if you wait till later, life happens, and yeah, exactly. So to me, I get asked a lot of time, when's the best time to prospect? My opinion ought to be early. So get to bed the night before, right? Get to bed early. Get up early. You know, there's a saying that goes something like, early to bed, early to rise. Yeah. See, I wonder if there's something to that. You know, so to me, that's what you ought to be doing. Then show up, obviously, to Morning Ascent. Be here for Morning Ascent. Afterwards, Morning Ascent. Then what should you be doing? Jumping. Now, don't. I'm going to say something, and I'm not like wanting. Don't like, all attack me for saying it. Okay, but and it doesn't apply to you guys. It's the people who aren't here. That's probably the way to say it, right? But I'm always amazed when Morning Ascent gets over how many people want to line up at my office to talk to me and ask questions. Now, if I were to though challenge them on, now I'm saying this and now nobody will show up and ever ask me a question again, right? Because of me saying this. But I'm amazed how many times they want to come and ask me questions, and my phone is like blowing up. But
Somebody just watched that, they're mad at you now.
that's probably what it is. You're talking about me, aren't you? So in reality, what's going on, though I know, is, and you might challenge me on this, but I've done it long enough that I know it's true, is it's the excuse not to prospect. It's, I got this question I need to go and ask Russ real quick because this is really important, I need to find it out. Look, here's one of the things that I've said for a long time is nobody's going to die if you don't answer your phone in real estate. I mean, we're not heart surgeons that like you're so specialized in this surgery that, you know, we need you here to save this person's life. I mean, don't let your schedule control you, not all the other stuff out there. Meaning, you need to have put in place, here's what my schedule is. You know, as soon as Morning Ascent's over, I'm going to prospect from this time to this time. And let your schedule be in control, not everybody else that's out there. And I know that's much easier said than done, but I've watched it so many times with agents where, yeah, but this client called, or you know, we're having this problem on a deal. You know, we worry, and I'm guilty of it too, we worry so much about a deal though, that we will spend all this time stressed and worried and trying to work on and put this deal together, when if what we did instead is just said, you know what, I'm going to just set that problem aside and go prospect for the next hour or 2 hours. And really then just did it and followed through on that prospecting, you would be less concerned, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but less concerned about that deal and if it works out or falls through because of what you had potentially picked up. Let me give you an example of that, okay? I had a guy up in Park City that he had a buyer, and this guy was going to buy $1 million piece of property. So he said, okay? And every week as we would talk, so when I would do the Give Me Wins and Successes, this guy always had something about this guy up in Park City, and I went and showed him houses and where he's getting close. Well, over time, I kind of started to realize this guy is not really a real buyer. And so I said, look, you should just get rid of this guy, quit showing him properties, refer it to somebody else, move on. Now, how many of you, because of, if you had a person who said they were going to buy a like $1 million home, if I were telling you, Natalie, quit working with them, what are you going to do?
You're an idiot.
You're just going to go, okay, Russ, yeah, you're right, I'll quit working with them, right? No, I mean, if anybody would do that if I said, yeah, Carrie, quit working with them.
I probably would have called him and said, listen, I don't have time in my schedule to do this unless you're a serious.
Perfect. See, that's what I want you guys to do, and I wouldn't even leave out, I would leave out the unless you're a serious. I would just say, I've got an appointment at that time. So, here's the story with this guy. So, he's week after week talking about it. Oh, and he's getting close, he's getting close. I started to figure out this guy's not real, quit wasting your time. Now, and why is that an issue? And when we're talking about plans and schedules, is in terms of the opportunity cost. When everything you do has an opportunity cost, meaning what else could you be doing instead of that, right? So I told him it's the opportunity cost that I'm concerned about, is you're spending all this time with this guy who, in my opinion, is never going to buy. So one week he shows up, he says, I got a story I got to share with you. I know you've been telling me to get rid of this guy for all this time, got to tell you what happened this last week. And I'm expecting we went and wrote an offer and that it's gonna be like, haha, you were wrong. So I said, okay, what happened? He says, okay. Now, at that time, we had an office in Park City, up on Main Street in Park City, that got a lot of walk-in traffic. And so we would usually have an agent just be there just kind of to hang out so that as people came in, because you could potentially pick up clients. So he's sitting there on what's called floor time. We don't really do it here, but on this floor time there at the office. So he's sitting in there. This guy calls him up on the phone and says, hey, I want to go see this property in Jeremy Ranch. It was 1.1 or 3 or something, I don't know how much million. Over $1 million though. He says, great, I'll meet you there. He goes and finds an agent in the office, so let's just say it was Timbra. He comes over to Timbra and says, hey, Timbra, I got a client wants to go see a house. Are you going to be here for the next little bit? She says, yeah, I'll hang out here. He says, all right, well, if anybody comes in, you can have him. Great. He leaves, jumps in his car, drives off to go show him. While he's gone, somebody walks in the door, comes to Timbra, says, hey, Timbra, we're in town, we've been skiing. We just saw this property that we're really interested in and we want to buy it. Is that something you could help us with? Timbra says, yeah, absolutely, I can help you. Let's take a look at it. Says, give me the MLS or the address or whatever. Gets the information, pulls it up. Guess how much it was? It was a condo for $1.2 million. They said, we're going to pay cash and we want to write it up right now. So Timbra writes up the offer, goes and presents it, gets it accepted. And what happened?
She made 36 grand.
Yeah, she made some pretty good money. And what happened to this other guy?
Still chasing.
He's probably still today up there showing this guy $1 million properties, waiting for him to buy, right? See, it's the opportunity cost. That's where if you will put together your schedule and just say, this is what my schedule is and I'm going to follow it, that kind of stuff won't happen to you because of, I just, for whatever reason, I just think the universe kind of gives us our just reward, you know? And so if you will follow your schedule and stick to it, in fact, last week I went on the door knocking on Wednesday, I went out with Ken, he and I went together. And I told, after we got done, I was talking to Ken and I said, one of the things I told him is I said, I don't know what it is, but here's what I found for me is it's not like I got a ton of listings and buyers off of door knocking. I mean, I got some, but for me, and this is what I told Ken, is I just found if I said I'm going to go out, this is my schedule to door knock every day from 10 until noon, if that's what my schedule is, I just found if I did it, it was like I got my reward for going out and doing it. It wasn't always that I got something from that, but it might have been later that day. I got a phone call off of a sign or something, or just an SOI of somebody that called me. But it just seemed like if I didn't do that, I didn't have business. But if I went and door knocked, either it came from the door knocking or from somewhere else. I just think that if you'll put a schedule in place and follow it, you'll be successful. Okay? Sorry, I'm going too detailed on some of these things. All right, next. So the next piece along the way here then is going to be mindset. Is your mindset. Okay, so now we've got in place here, we understand our why. We put together, well, here's what our goals are. Here's my 1-year goal, my 2, my 5, my 10-year goal. I've got in place. Here's the plan of how I'm going to get there. What do I need to do to make it happen? And then on the daily basis, here's what my schedule needs to look like to get there. Okay? Now that I've got that, the next step along the way is the mindset. This is a very, or can be, a very discouraging, frustrating business, right? I mean, have you figured that out yet? There's a lot of rejection, a lot of, people hanging up on you, slamming the door on your face, yelling at you, all of those things. Is it just me, or you guys? You guys are kind of staring at me. So, okay. So one of the biggest things we need to work on is mindset. Now, in terms of that, so that is why we do a morning ascent every morning. Is the idea. Now, in fact, let me steal back from you, Kim, those things. That is why we do every day. We're going through and starting with this Napoleon Hill thing of his success formula. We use that success formula to get the day started. Sorry, I took your what you were writing on, right? So, but this success formula, Napoleon Hill sat down with Andrew Carnegie, who was this steel magnate that had, one of the most wealthy guys, right? And what happened is he told Napoleon Hill, I want you to go interview all these people. Find out what it is. What is kind of the secret to success? So he went and did that. Contained within the book, then he has this formula here, his self-confidence formula, that he's got these 5 things of if you'll do these 5 things, this is what the people who are successful do. And so you can take a few minutes and go through it. We won't do it right now for the sake of time, but that's why we start with this every day, is to go through that. Then on the backside, we've got this 12-step summit to success. Where that came from was again, over time, George and John sitting down looking at it saying, what would an agent need to do 24 plus transactions? Which George even said last week talking about this. He said, really, if you really did everything that it talks about on these 12 steps, you're going to do way more than 24 deals. And I would agree. You will. You're probably looking 40 or 50, I would say, on this. But look at that. One of the things it talks about is dedicate 1 hour daily towards building and protecting my self-confidence. See, this mindset stuff, it plays games on you. But not only that, you're going to have other people saying, look, what's going on? I mean, how long you been doing this real estate thing? You haven't had a deal yet?
Well, like the first week I was here, Rick and I were role playing, and he said that like what you need to understand is that every time somebody says no to you, you're actually grateful for it, because you're like, well, just practice. Like every time somebody says no, it just makes you better, and so that really changed, like shifted me from like, oh, that's gonna be depressing every time somebody says no, to like, well, what do I do better the next time? Or because when you get the yes, it's like, oh, okay. But all the no's weren't your yeses in the first place. So you can just be grateful for the practice and move on.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Thank you. Yeah, and it is. That's a mindset. That's a shift in mindset. Same thing, I think, as you're out looking for those, as you get the no's, being excited that you figured out, okay, that person didn't need my help. So that's one less person I got to worry about. I can go to the next one, right? So your mindset. So in terms of that, some of the things you need to be making sure that you're conscious of in terms of the mindset is, what kinds of things are you reading? All right, we do every month, each of the offices, we've got book club. So right now, the book that we're doing is What Every Body is saying or telling or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Saying?
Last night.
Yeah. I read some of it this morning and I can't even think what it is. But it's What Every Body is saying, right? Yeah. So anyway, but what are you reading? And as you put good things in, that's what's going to come out, right? So you got to make sure that you are taking some time to sit down and read. So what are you reading? Second to that would be, what are you watching? Are you watching The Bachelor, or is it The Bachelor or Bachelorette? That's whatever one's on right now. Yeah, nobody's going to say, right? Yeah, both probably. Yeah. So although for me, Survivor is mine, but that's my reality.
I like PBS.
Yeah, good. But so stop and think about, what is it you're watching? Are you using TV as a tool to help you grow and become better, or are you using it just to be mindless and those type of things? Which, that's probably the category I sometimes fall into. But, like I said, I sat in my basement yesterday. A majority of yesterday was watching baseball for me. So probably not the best use of time. But so what are the things that you're watching? Who are you associating with? Stop and think about, who are the people that you are hanging out with? Are they people who are going to lift you and make you better? Are they people that are dragging you down? Heard a story a while back about the crab theory. Have you guys heard that? This guy was walking along the beach and sees a guy catching crabs and throwing them in a bucket, and he says, you need to put a lid on that bucket or those crabs are going to get out. And the guy says, no, they won't. And he says, well, yeah, they're climbing to get out. And he says, just sit and watch them for a little while. He sat down and watched in this bucket these crabs. Every time a crab was about to climb out of the bucket, another one would reach up, grab him, pull him back down again. So don't be make sure you're not hanging out with crabs that are, and believe me, this is real, because I've seen it so many times. You set a schedule and you start to follow it, I guarantee you're going to have somebody else in the office going, oh, you don't need to prospect, Gabriel, come on. Just come and go to lunch. And you're going to, yeah, but I haven't got my prospecting done yet. Oh, that's okay. You can do it tomorrow. You got plenty of time, right? I mean, you're going to have people trying to pull you back down. Everybody wants you to stay down where they're at. Nobody wants you to get ahead. So be careful who you are associating with. Are they people who are encouraging you to, hey, you haven't got, oh, hey, I would love for you to come to lunch, but Gabriel, you didn't get your appointment, you're not coming. Wouldn't you rather that than the other way around? So making sure that, and then the last piece on this in terms of mindset as well, and I already hit on a little bit, is participate. I have been here with Century 21 now since June of last year, so I'm not even a year, and I have not missed very many morning ascents. Now I'm saying that, and I'm not going to be here tomorrow, but I have not missed many morning ascents. I mean, I am at probably, I'll bet it has averaged out to 4 or 4.5 per week that I'm here since I've been here. It's always surprising to me how many people that I will see who show up and they come to morning ascent, and then after a while, all of a sudden they're going, oh, okay, George is just saying the same things over and over again. Or we're in Centerville, it's John. He's just practicing the listing presentation again. Yet, if I said to you, okay, come up and do your listing presentation right now, how many of you could come up and do it exactly the way that we teach it to be done, right? So it just surprises me. Make sure you're participating. The people who I see that come and participate on a regular basis are the ones who are successful. So as much as you can, participate. Even if it is that if you can't, so for instance, I said I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm flying to St. George to go teach base camp tomorrow in St. George. So, but I will have the app on my phone. I can promise you, as I'm driving to the airport, my phone will be plugged into my car. I'll be listening to Morning Ascent as I drive to the airport. So there's no excuse, even if you're not here, to not either be listening live or you can get the recorded piece of it. But if you will participate and just get involved in what's going on, come to the, and again, I'm not saying you need to be here every single morning, but you probably ought to say 3 to 4 mornings that you're going to be here and or at least watching it. And the same thing with either sales meeting or base camp on a weekly basis. Make sure that you're there working on those things because that is going to contribute to the mindset on this. So all of those pieces are mindset related. All right, next, then. Is discipline and accountability. So discipline is going to be what's going to be internal, meaning like if I just say I'm going to prospect tomorrow, then I actually just go and do it. I don't need any outside force to help me. That's going to be the discipline piece of it. The accountability piece is external. So that's why actually we start on Tuesdays doing this accountability thing is I want you guys to be accountable. And say, this is what I need to do, and here's what I'll do if I don't do it. You know, having some type of accountability built in. One of the things that I think is interesting when you think about, stop and think for a minute. Let's analyze. What does the word account mean? Like if we're thinking about accounting, what is it? What is accounting?
Documenting actions.
Okay, good. And what were you saying, Tim? Measure. Okay, yes, if you stop and think about just in terms of accounting, you guys are right on, but in terms of accounting in general, basically what they are doing with accounting is bringing things into balance, right? You got debits and you got credits, and they have to balance out, right? So in accounting, we're keeping track, measuring these things, but to bring it into balance. So if you stop and think about for you in terms of accountability, the purpose of accountability is to give you the balance in these areas of your life so that you are balanced in what you're doing. You know, going back in time to where accounting came from is it was like that you would show up at the facility with your grain or your chickens or whatever, and they would do an accounting for that of, okay, here's what they brought in, here's what we're giving, here's how much grain we're going to give out or whatever. It was bringing those things into balance. That's the purpose. Let me say that differently. For you, accountability is a privilege. Meaning, if you stop and think about it, when somebody holds you accountable to something, why would they do that?
They care about the outcome for you.
Yeah, thank you. If you stop and really think about in terms of accountability, it takes somebody who really cares about you to be willing to say, Timbra, you're messed up. What are you doing? You know, why are you doing that? You should be doing this instead. It's, you know, but let me give you another example. Accountability. If I show up to McDonald's here for lunch, let's say I go over to McDonald's and I say, give me 4 Big Macs, 4 large fry, and 4 Cokes. Is the person at the counter going to be like, are you sure you want to eat 4 Big Macs?
No, they don't care.
Yeah, they don't care, right? I mean, I go buy a dozen donuts and I'm going to go eat all these donuts. They don't care. It takes somebody who really cares. Accountability is a privilege. Stop and think about that. How much does it cost to sign up for Mike Ferry coaching? You know?
$600 or $700 or something like that.
Yeah, how often? Per month.
Yeah, it's
Oh, is that?
Yeah, I mean, to sign up to have somebody call you on the phone and say, Natalie, did you do what you said you were going to do this last week? Agents are paying $800 to $1,000 a month for somebody to do that for them. I mean, stop and think about it. It's a privilege, really, to have somebody hold you accountable to say, did you do what you said you were going to do? So make sure that you, with your goals and plans and things, that you've got somebody. My hope is that as we do this each week, that you get into the habit of it, that even if once you're done with coming to classes, that you've got an accountability partner, that you can hold each other accountable, that I can say, Zach, you said you needed to prospect and get 4 appointments this week. Have you done it? And if he has, great, good job. If he hasn't, then hey, what's going on? You know, are you really committed to this or are you not? So have somebody, that's the idea for me, is you should have somebody holding you accountable on a weekly basis. So even, don't just fill it out just through the motions as we do it here. Do it to make yourself better and to do better and to become better. All right. Next one is skills, skill set. Okay. See, here, when we talk about the difference of being here versus other companies, most companies are never going to really make it into a little bit of goals and business planning, but the rest of this stuff very unusual. And even the skill set, there's a lot that don't do. So there are 12 skill sets that you guys need to have that you really work on a consistent basis that you are getting better and better at. So let's make a list of those 12 skill sets. What are they? And let's try to go in order. We don't have to get exact, but stop and think about just in terms of like, what's the very first thing, if you want to be successful in this business, what's the very first skill set? Now, as I'm saying that, though, I'm having a different thought. But I'll give you one of them. Here's what I would say. Your number one skill set you need to have is presenting. But that's not what we're going to list as number one here. So as I'm saying that, your number one is going to be, because if you have your presentation down, you're good at doing presentations, the rest of these skills will be easier to do. Does that make sense? But so let's stop and think. If I'm brand new, I mean, even though I just said presenting is probably your number one skill set you need to have, it's not, what good does that do me if I'm brand new? I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Prospecting?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. So the first thing we've got to be able to do is set appointments, right? That's got to be our first skill set. Now, as I'm saying that, doesn't mean we don't work on the rest of these, but without appointment, how many deals are you going to do without an appointment? Yeah, I can think of one time in 20 years that I did a deal that I actually I couldn't pick the guy out of a lineup. I mean, I can think of one time in 20 years that I did a deal that somebody I didn't have an appointment with. Now, we talked over the phone and we did everything that way, but I never actually in person met the guy. And that's, I mean, so we got to have appointments, right? So number one is we got to be able to set appointments. So, or prospect, okay? So think of it that way. It's prospecting, but the purpose of prospecting is to set appointments. Number two is going to be somewhat related to this. But what do we have to do in fact, let me ask it this way. So I'm prospecting. Let's say I don't get any appointments, but I get some leads. What do I need to do? Lead follow-up. Good. Okay, now that one, let me speak to that one for a second. I watch so many agents. I mean, this has got to be probably the number one mistake that I see made just in all of real estate, but specifically even more so with new agents. But we go prospect, we don't get appointments, but we get some leads. We get a bunch of leads. And then we never follow up with them. I mean, stop and think about that for a minute, just in terms of like we go spend all this time to generate leads and then we never follow up. I was talking to an agent recently about for sale by owners. And he came in and was being frustrated because he wasn't getting any for sale by owners. And I said, well, and I don't even remember who it was, to be honest. So if it was one of you, we won't say it. What? It might have been Gabriel. I don't know. It could. Well, if it was, you can either say it was or wasn't. But basically, I said, okay, so that's awesome. But like, how many times are you following up with these for sale by owners? And the answer was not at all. I talked to him the one time and I'm not getting any appointments. So then the next day I call again the new for sale by owners and I don't get any appointments. And every day they were just call. I mean, it is pretty unusual, and especially for newer agents over the phone, that you're going to call for sale by owners and get an appointment the very first time. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does. But you're gonna get way more, which did you do a lot of, before you came here, you were doing a lot of for sale by owners, weren't you? How many times did you get the appointment on the first cut time versus after follow-up over and over and over again, Bill?
We had a 7-touch process after first contact, and generally you were gonna convert them, if you converted them, it was between 6 and 7,
Thank you.
and usually it wasn't before or after.
Yeah, so keep that in mind as we talk about this. As you generate leads, you're probably gonna have to follow up with them 6 or 7 times before you're gonna get them. So don't be frustrated that you're calling and you're not getting an appointment right off the bat, because it's gonna take some lead follow-up. I mean, if you were a for sale by owner and you just put it up today, it's highly unlikely you're gonna, unless that was the whole point, was to find an agent, but most of the time they really think they can sell it themselves. And so they don't wanna set an appointment because we just barely put it up for sale by owner. We're gonna try it for a few weeks first.
I've been having a few of these where you call and it's basically this company, these individuals that show the home. I just cross it out, like, they sort of show, you call and show the home and they screen the calls. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure I do.
Flat rate broker.
Oh, so it's listed is what
That's
you
listed, yeah, that's not actually on
Really? Because they said it's just,
Well, when you call
That's
for
what
sale
we're
by
talking
owner,
about. Is that what we're
I'm
talking
calling.
about?
Yeah, you get a
Oh,
voicemail that says press 1 or
Oh, wait,
or
here.
then
No,
Hang
no,
on.
it's a person
No, I
that
wasn't
answers
saying
it, and all their job is to do is when someone calls, they will meet them at the house and they will show
Is
the
that the
house.
Intermountain
So it's
thing
showing
that
the
somebody was
system.
talking about?
could have been. It probably could
Well,
have
the Intermountain Properties,
Is that what that is?
Intermountain Properties, all they do is put it on the MLS and nothing else, so they
But
don't,
they're technically
they
with
don't-
an agent.
they don't help
Yes.
show or anything, that is technically listed, so it is not a for sale by owner.
Correct.
Right.
But they don't do any sort of showing or anything, so this other thing you're talking about is different.
Yeah, they're not agents.
And I don't know,
Oh,
I've
so it's
never,
not an agent.
I've never met a for sale by owner that works with a company to show their home like that. Never.
I've
So I
called
would assume
last
they're
week
listed.
Like if
about
they put a
5 or
lockbox
6,
on
you're there, I called about 5 or 6 of them.
And what are
Whereas,
they saying?
well, basically, they divert the number to these people, and this person answers the phone and says, "Oh, I'm just gonna show the house." So they're just hired to show the house. So
sometimes
you,
for sale by
So
owner.
someone is
So
telling
it-
you.
I was gonna say, so what it sounds like,
yes.
yeah, so what it sounds like is somebody that's saying you wanna eliminate your phone calls from agents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pay me, I'll take the phone call for you and separate the agents from the, interesting.
Yeah, and I got 5 or 6 of them last week.
the home to show it?
Well,
They
they
have
are,
a
they
key
have a
box.
key box, yeah, so they show the
So it
house.
probably is somebody who is an agent, but they're probably not actually listing the home.
They're not an agent, because I
Okay.
asked them, I said, "Are you a real estate agent?" And they said, "No, I am just hired to screen calls and to show the home." And I said, "Do you get I'm sorry, but do you get paid per showing, or do you get commission?" I get paid showing it.
Oh, yeah, I remember you saying.
Yeah, you heard me talking about
Interesting,
that.
I don't, yeah, I was gonna say, it's just some, yeah,
I should run that service.
So go door knock 'em.
yeah, that's what I, yeah, thank you.
With some
Yeah,
of
wait,
the-
wait, hang on, wait. I wanna make, sorry, I wanna make sure everybody got that. Say it again.
Just go door knock 'em.
Yeah, go,
Yeah.
that's the thing, which honestly, for newer agents, I think you should be door knocking the for sale by owners and expireds anyway. I think that's a great thing to be doing, so.
Sometimes those
Go
are
ahead.
just, all I was gonna say is sometimes they're just empty homes. I mean, like the
Yeah.
person's already
Well,
moved out.
then awesome, go knock on the neighbors' doors and find out,
Yeah.
you know, how do I get a hold of these people? Who are
If
they?
they have a different address, sometimes we'll.
So, okay, good, so, but we get the point
There's a
though.
lot of things.
Once we generate the lead, we gotta do the lead follow-up, you're gonna have to follow up, so you need a system in place that you can use to follow up with these people over and over, recognizing it's probably gonna take 6 or 7 times, okay, good. What else? Now that we've been lead follow-up and or setting appointments,
So
so,
sometimes do you, like, how long do you wait till you follow up the lead, like the next day?
good question, it kinda depends on the scenario. If I were talking to Curtis back there, and Curtis said, yeah, we've actually thought about selling our home, and but we're not gonna do it until June.
Till we remodel the kitchen.
Okay, or till we remodel the kitchen. Okay, so when are you planning on remodeling the kitchen?
We're in the middle of it, we got the walls torn out.
Oh, really? Okay, so when's the contractor saying it'll be done?
Okay, yeah, I guess I could ask further questions.
Yeah, so you just gotta ask more questions,
Yeah.
but then whatever they tell you, if they said, okay, we're probably 2 months out, I wouldn't wait 2 months to call them again. In fact, I would say a great thing in that scenario, you know what? Write a handwritten note to the people and put a card in it and put it in a card and mail it to them, or go drop it off or something, so that they get that. But then I just feel like, depending on how you know the people, you got to do a few touches kind of early on, and then after that you can kind of start to spread them out a little bit. But I can't tell you how many times you go door knock somebody and they say that, and they, oh yeah, we'll use you. And then you call them 2 weeks later, they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So you got to do it early on. You got to do a few
That's
more
what I'm trying to
touches.
say is like right up front, you probably wanna call them every other day or something for
Well,
2 or 3 days. Just to say,
I don't
"Alright,
know that it
tomorrow."
necessarily needs to be that, but at the same time, if it's something that's happening quicker, then yes, I would be doing it. So you kind of have to play it a little by ear.
I get their emails, sometimes they give them I get their emails and I have their phone, and I have like three leads right now that I'm working with. I just started calling last week, and it's quite interesting because you think, oh, they're not answering my text message, you know, and then you're thinking, oh, they're probably not interested. But then, like just on Sunday, I get a text message, oh, I'm not avoiding you.
Yeah.
I'm on.
They're
you
just
know?
not ready yet.
Yeah, they're not ready yet,
Yeah.
or you just call them back again, or email them, and you know, just do those kind of things, and just just say, hey,
For sure.
I'll make this really quick to answer his question as best I can from where I came from. They told us to put those 7 touches into as close of a time frame as possible without offending the client. So if we could get 7 touches in a week.
And I think that's the key, is you don't want to, it's, I mean, if
tell when
they,
it's not okay anymore.
yeah, you just kind of have to play it a little by ear. It needs to be often enough that they remember who you are, but that not too often that it doesn't
And
offend
you
you.
can use an excuse to come by for contribution.
Yes.
I think part of it too, anytime you have a conversation with them, you're scheduling your next follow-up with them. And they're almost
Yes.
giving you permission to
Yes.
call them in 2
Yep,
days.
Exactly.
They're
Perfect.
giving you permission
I'll
to
check
call
back
them in
with you in
3
a couple
days or
days.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
That way, they can't be offended because they already okayed it with you, so.
Yep, perfect.
Oh, I think sometimes even with like a remodel situation, it's like nothing will happen for a month, and then all of a sudden, like in 2 days, the whole thing. And so
Yeah.
they'll be like 2 months, and so sometimes, like I have a friend who's remodeling a bathroom, and her husband's is a plumber. So I'm like, I'm gonna touch base with you every week, and I'm gonna find out. And I know that's making her put a fire under him to finish the work, because otherwise it could just, And so it's possible it could go on for 6 months or like a weekend.
Yeah, so typically what I would say in terms of a lead is I think it's a good idea once a week until you figure out that, hey, they're months. If they're going to be 6 months or a year out, then you don't want to go every single week for a year. But I would say every couple of weeks to every month. Okay. All right. So then after that, what skill do we need to have next? So we've set an appointment. What would be the next thing we should do?
Presentation.
Before the presentation. So the presentation is going to be number 4 here.
CMA or prepare.
Oops.
Research.
Research.
Okay, good. I'll throw that in with this. Pre-qualify.
Oh.
Now, why would we want to pre-qualify people?
So many people are just looking to look, I
Yeah.
imagine, and
Good.
it takes
Yes.
a lot to get people geared
And
up.
I require both sides needs to be fine.
Yes.
So pre-qualify, PR report, these kind of things.
Correct.
Well, they have the ability to,
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Now, here's what I will say though, as we talk about this, in terms of for you guys as new agents, is on the pre-qualification, I still think it's a good idea for you to go out, and as Timber brought up earlier, it's great practice, if nothing else. So using the pre-qualification scripts that we have, I think it's a good idea, and over time, you'll kind of figure out for you what your cutoff is, meaning that in terms of the condition, the ability, their motivation, the price they want to do, those kind of 4 things that count, that you'll want to, that's kind of what you're trying to pre-qualify, is to figure out, do I want to take the time to go out on this appointment or should I not go out? Now, as I said, early on for you as an agent, I think it's a good idea, even if it felt like they're not ready, they're not going to do anything, I still think you should go out, because it is, as Timber said, I liked how she said it's great practice. For you, it's great practice to go out and do it. So I would say early on, still go out on some of those appointments. Over time, though, you're going to start to develop as you get busier and busier to where you're going to start to develop to figure out, hey, this is when I would want to go out, or this is not when I'm going to go out. And this one's, I'm not going to take the time to go out and do it. I'll go find somebody else and refer it or whatever, okay? So, but you want to start working on making sure you're asking those questions, because I can tell you, there's nothing worse than forgetting to say, will all the decision makers be there when I come out? And then you get out there and they go, oh, I love everything you have to say. Now I just got to convince my ex-wife that that's the price, right? So we got to make sure that we have all the right people there as we do the presentation, okay? So the next skill then, presenting. Now I already talked about presenting. In my opinion, the better you are at this, the better you'll do up here. Why?
Because it all goes together anyway.
Yeah, because in a sense, it all goes together anyway, right? The other piece of this is what I have actually found with agents, more times than not, they're afraid to prospect because somebody might say yes. Yeah, I mean, we're not so. If they say no, it's no big deal, right? I mean, it's a big deal and it's negative, but at least I don't have to worry about it because I don't know what I was going to say anyway, right? So the more you can practice and work on your presentation and get better at your presenting skills, the less scared you're going to be about going out and doing it. So you really need to be getting with a partner and practicing this, role play the presentation and practice, okay? Because the more you do that and the better you get at that, the better off you will be in terms of you're not going to be afraid of getting appointments, okay? Go ahead, Timber.
Oh, no, it's I think you just give, you get a lot of information in the first 3 and you have to spend less time at the presentation.
Yes, thank you.
So you don't have
for
to
sure.
spend all this time talking people into selling or
For
what's
sure.
your financial situation.
Yep,
You've
'cause you already
done
found it.
a ton.
Good. Yeah, excellent. All right, what's next? After we've presented, then what? What's our
Close the
next thing
deal.
that we need to
Sign
do?
the contract.
Close the deal.
Okay, before that.
Oh.
You're on, that's number 6. We keep skipping one. So number 6 is closing. Okay, good. Want me to help you with it? Handle objections, right? Because what's going to happen is as we're presenting at the end, potentially they're going to say, "Oh, love everything that you've talked about. We just want to sleep on it tonight."
That's great.
Okay?
Tell you what we'll do.
Or
Sign the paperwork, call me in the morning, tell me yay or nay.
good. See, yeah, good. You can tell he's been showing up to Morning Ascent working on the objections, right? Or I've got a friend in the business. Or, any of those common the objections haven't changed, by the way, in like 20 years. They're still all the exact same. So you want to work on these so that you know how to handle it when somebody brings that up and says, we want to sleep on it overnight. Or we want to we only want a 30 to 60 day listing, or we want you to cut your commission. I mean, any of those things. So work on those. Then the next skill we need to work on is closing. What makes a good, easy closing? Yeah, really, I mean, it's what Gary said already. This is so crucial to really everything. Because if we do this right, and as we pre-qualify, all of these things are tied together. A good presentation makes for an easy getting the close too. I'm saying, all right, now that we've talked about all that, and I think too, in terms of the best way in terms of closing is to make sure that at the start of the presentation, or as you go out and show people homes, just making sure that you're telling them. And in fact, Bill and I were talking yesterday, and one of the best things I think you can do with a buyer is right out of the gate, tell them, after every house I'm going to ask you, do you want to write an offer on this? I'm not trying to force you to buy something. I just need to know where it's at. So I'm going to ask you, and I can tell them that as part of this presentation. I'm going to ask you after every home we walk into, do you want to write an offer on this house? I'm not trying to push you. I just want to make sure I'm not wasting your time looking at things that don't work. See, if you do that, how easy does that make then in terms of closing to be able to, we come out of the house and say, all right, Jesus, do you want to write an offer on this house?
And to your point,
No?
they
Okay.
offer it up.
What's that?
At that point, like you said, they offer it up. Like my last client just came out of the house and said, okay, we wanna write an offer on this one.
Yeah, see, that's just it. If you set it up right, it's not going to take very many times of doing it that even as they walk out of the house, you don't even have to ask anymore. They'll just say, Dallin, we don't want to write an offer on this one. Oh, okay. Then the next one, they'll come out and go, yep, we want to write an offer on this one. Oh, see, it'll make it so easy. Okay, good. So what's after closing then? Because we're only halfway through our 12 skills here. What's next? All right, I'm going to change shoes. Oh. Which this isn't necessarily in exact order, but next one is going to be then pricing. So one of the skills you need to work on is pricing in terms of helping people make sure that you're getting the price right and those things taken care of, that you're understanding CMA and helping them get to the right price, okay? Then what else would be after that?
Commission?
Negotiations.
Yeah, negotiate.
Okay.
So which that would be commissions as well. So in terms of our negotiating skills, Dallin talked at the start of the class. Well, what a great skill, obviously, right? If you can help your buyer get a home that you're not the highest offer, those are pretty good negotiating skills, right? So we want to make sure that we work on that. What is the best negotiating skill that you can have? Which Dallin actually kind of brought it up, but in terms of negotiating. Communication, right? Really all of these, that's kind of under the heading, all of these are going to fall under communication. And in terms of the communication, what did he do?
He took control.
Yeah, find out for them what's most important and find out what is going to be the emotional piece of it. I mean, he sent over a picture, here's a picture of the family and they love the house and they can just see their kids in the backyard on that swing set and I don't know if he said that, but those type of things, right? That's going to be the best way to be a good negotiator. Call the agent and say, what's going to be most important on this? Yeah, anytime there's a multiple offer, what is your client looking for? I mean, that's kind of what you said, right?
Alright, it was, okay, if they're obviously wanting to go into multiple offers, that means our offer is short somewhere. They're not saying yes to our offer, and they're wanting something else out of this offer. What is it? What do we need to change in our offer to make it happen? She said, well, you'll just take out the, $2,000 of your closing costs. They'll do it. Done.
There you go. Yeah, see, just call and ask. I mean, it's back to what we talked about before, an open book test, right? Okay, I'm gonna probably have to look at my notes again. Oh yeah. Which we talk about this in the activities management class, but time management. One of the skills you gotta work on, which we've been talking about it in terms of our plan and our schedule, is really being able to manage your time and saying, these are the things I'm gonna do and when I'm gonna do it, right? Dan, I have to keep cheating on my notes here. Oh, actually, I skipped one. We talked about this actually even this morning, is price reductions. Being able to, when a seller, when Curtis lists his property overpriced because his wife, ex-wife, doesn't want to get it, we need the skill of being able to go back and say, hey, I messed up. When I wasn't strong enough with you on price to begin with to help you understand that we were too high. So at this point, we need to figure out what we're going to do differently, okay?
That's part of the closing. According to George, when he says you present that in the closing and then you don't even tell them.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, which that's another great price reduction skill. You're exactly right. Is up here when they want to overprice it, saying, great, let's try your price. We'll try your ex-wife's price, but we're also going to sign a price reduction, a change form, changing the price 3 weeks from today, 2 weeks from today, and this is the price we're going to go to. Yeah, good. Okay, good. What else? What am I forgetting?
Marketing.
Actually, that's not going to be one of them.
Look for buyers.
These ones are, yeah, okay, good. That was number 12. So customer service, making sure that we have good customer service. We want to work on that skill. It's good customer service skills. There's a great book, I can't think of the name of it, that talks about customer service. Shoot. Raving Fans, thank you. Yeah, Raving Fans. Raving, R-A-V. Like a rave.
Okay.
See, I can see who age of people when I see them. So yeah, Raving Fans. That's a great book to learn about customer service, okay? And then the last one is going to be your buyers, or highly qualified buyers, okay? Working with buyers. Those are the skills. Those are really, when we talk over here in terms of our skill set, these are the 12 skills that you need to be spending time working on, making sure that you have dialed in is these 12 skills, okay? And then finally, the last thing up here is going to be, which is what most people want to be their first thing, is systems, tools, and strategies.
And self-actualization.
That's right. On Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it would be self-actualization, right? But so the systems, the tools, the things. Too many times, again, we get caught up in, I got to make sure I got the right system and the right tools and the right strategies before I can start to go and do all these other things. So that's not what you wanna do. You wanna spend your time actually making sure that we've got these skills and things, and then using those things as tools. We don't want it to be the end all be all. We're gonna use some of those things as a tool, which is what we talked about actually, I think in class on Thursday. Was that when we did all the lead router and all those kinds of things, right? So this is what the company foundation is. And just making sure that you're first figuring out the why. If you have not done this yet, take some time. Carve out some time to say, I'm gonna sit down and figure out what is it I really wanna do. I mean, like if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing? Where would you be spending your time? And if you'll do that, figure out that, then from there saying, okay, what are the goals that I need to put in place to get there, both short-term and long-term goals? What's the plan that's gonna get me there in the daily schedule? Work on it daily on your mindset, making sure you've got those things put in place, having the discipline, either just of yourself to do it or getting somebody else to hold you accountable to do it, working on those skill sets and those things. So now you know the secret to success, the formula for success in this business. And this is a very simple business, but it's not easy, as you probably have learned. But anyway, any questions, thoughts? Okay, well thank you for being here. Hopefully you got something good out of it, and we'll see you on Thursday where we're gonna do the buyer packet. So, okay? Thanks for being here, have a good one. See who's been trying to call me 15 times today. So, say that again. Oh, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
idea, and it's
Oh, you are.
whenever I sold mine.
Yeah, this Thursday. Oh, I thought you were saying you weren't coming. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yes, exactly. Perfect.
I haven't done that side very much.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, they're in the scripts. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Your book? Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're on page, tell you here.
I thought I'd seen theirs.
It's like page 4, 5, yeah.
Okay.
3, 4, 5, and 6, yep.
Thanks.
Oh, and Lance, I forgot to have you. I kept thinking halfway through class, I need to walk this back to you.
I think he means by the real estate purchase contract copy. You just take one of those out and give it to him.
When you say, what does he mean? Who's he?
I don't know, so I think someone passed this up to me, because I was talking about how many times I can contact my lead
Oh,
property profile. So I was like printing up the old.
I'll bet that was Bill, yeah. Yeah, property profile would be, you could, if you went to the title company and just said, hey, can you give me a property profile? They'll put something together for you. Yeah. So I mean, that's what he's talking
What do you mean by real estate purchase contract copy? Take that and give that to him, saying, hey, this is the hell.
about. Yeah, just a copy of the real
Sell
estate.
your home.
Yep. This guy is.
And then what does he mean by seller disclosure? Just going and asking questions about their property.
Well, just, they're the seller disclosures that a seller would fill out, so that's another excuse of just saying, hey, this is something you're gonna need as you sell your home, is the seller disclosure, so,
Says that we have in paper.
Hmm?
They just go through and mark up
Hmm?
from the MLS, right?
Hmm?
Okay.
or you can get on top of them too. Yeah, so.
And then home warranty would be what?
Just the home warranty plans, going and talking about it, to them about it.
What's the home warranty plan?
So, it's something that the buyer gives the buyer for the first year, all the major components of the house are covered. And it's just like a car warranty or something, so if something breaks, yeah, so you just go talk to them about, hey, here's some, talk to them, explain what a home warranty is and all that, so again, you can just get, I'm sure we've got a flyer sitting around here somewhere from one of the home warranties, or just go like
What does it
online to
cost?
American Home Shield, about $500. And typically the buyers will ask the seller to pay for it for them. I'm not sure what he's talking about on appraisal and pre-marketing packets. I guess resume would be your own or marketing strategies. And then there's
Pre-marketing strategy, pre-marketing practice,
Yeah.
oh, package.
yeah, that's the other one. Really remember that, but basically, these are just excuses to, just finding excuses to follow up with them. Oh, I should have shut this off, I forgot.
7 total in person.